Welcome to Hopenning 2.0, the place where hope happens. I'm Fran, a lifelong learner and passionate hypnotherapist dedicated to helping you rediscover the power within. After 34 years of guiding and inspiring young minds as an elementary school teacher, I found a new calling, spreading hope and healing through rapid transformational therapy. Here at Hopenning 2.0, I dive deep into the journeys of recovery, resilience, and transformation. So take a deep breath, open your heart, and let's step into a space where healing begins and hope truly lives. The amazing Dudley Evenson is the co-founder of Soundings of the Planet record label. She is a multimedia producer, writer, and life coach who has been living her dreams for over 5 decades. This sound healing pioneer plays harp with her husband, Dean Evenson, whom she met in 1968. Together, their songs have been downloaded or streamed over 1 billion times, and their award-winning record label Soundings of the Planet, which was created in 1979, is a mission of sharing peace through music. She has authored 2 books and is working on a memoir with archival video of her family's adventurous journey from the 1960s into the new millennium. Together, she and Dean have discovered a spiritual quest which has spanned over half a century. Welcome to Hopenning 2.0. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hopenning. This is a place where hope happens when you open your mind and heart to new beginnings. And I am very blessed today to have my friend and a sound healing pioneer here, Dudley Evenson from Bellingham, Washington. Welcome, Dudley.
Thank you, Fran. I'm so honored to be here. Hope is what we need, obviously, right now.
We definitely do, and it doesn't seem to matter where we are in the world. Hope is so needed for so many reasons. So I'm really enchanted and blessed to have you here. So can you tell our viewers a bit about the Crown of Flowers and what that means to anyone who doesn't know you yet? And we'll get into that a little bit later about what that all means to you.
Thank you. Yes, Crown of Flowers is a track from the album Seeds of Peace, which my husband Dean Evenson created recently with our very good Ukrainian friend, Valadymyr Solionyc. And what's interesting is we had met him in 1987. Dean and I organized a citizen diplomacy tour of artists to the Soviet Union, the former Soviet Union, because what we noticed is that what the governments and the politicians are doing didn't seem to represent what people were doing. And there was a very strong movement back in the 80s, and I hope it's still continuing, for everyday people to meet everyday Americans, to meet everyday Russians, everyday Ukrainians, everyday Africans, everyday people from the countries where we might have conflict with. And so we took a group of about 20 people, artists, all dancers, musicians, storytellers. There was a skateboard artist. It was quite a wonderful group of people that we organized out of Tucson, Arizona. And that was in order for us to go to the former Soviet Union and meet people. And in our minds, it was very important to meet musicians because as musicians ourselves, it was really a good opportunity to see what we could do to connect with people in the former Soviet Union. And so our first stop on the journey was in Ukraine and Kiev. And we ended up, it's a fun story because we were scheduled to perform at a Polytechnic Institute, and we were waiting for the more of the students to arrive. Well, Dean and our cellist, Jonathan Kramer, had their mics set up. We were ready to go as soon as the other students had come in. But in the meantime, there was a Ukrainian man who went out and started playing piano. And I said to Dean, you know, he's got that kind of nice, flowing, peaceful piano sound and melodies that really match what you're doing. oh, your mics are already set up. Why didn't you go and just start playing with them? It was a chance we took, but it worked out great. And so for a little while, without ever having said hello, without speaking each other's languages, we were able to actually create a new piece of music. And then over the next few days, while we were there in his city, he showed us around. He took us to the school where he worked. He was a music teacher. We met all sorts of people there, and it was a really wonderful connecting with people. Again, he didn't speak English, barely a few words, and we sure did not speak Ukrainian or Russian. And later we went to St. Petersburg, which Leningrad, whatever it's called today. I don't even know what they're calling it today. It keeps going back and forth. And met with Sergei Kuryokin, who's also was a fabulous Russian musician. So we were combining our energies and really in a deep and personal way representing our vision of peace through music, of sharing peace through music. And so we ended up creating an album called Music Makes the Snow Melt Down, because that's what one of the teachers where we were doing a presentation at a school in Kiev said. He said, your visit was so wonderful. It really made the snow melt down. And we thought, well, maybe that's the name of our album that we do in our collaboration with Soviet musicians. And that came out way back in the 80s. And then once we got into the 21st century, it turned out that Valadymyr Solionyc was coming to visit the United States, and we arranged for him to come to Bellingham and do some recording with us. And so that was back, 20 years ago, even almost 20 years ago. And so we had this wonderful music on the shelf. He went home, this and this happened. And then in the past few years with the war that's currently happening with Russia invading Ukraine, it occurred to us that this might be a good time to pull out those tracks and see what we had. And so Dean worked with Phil Heaven, our engineer, and we started to really put those tracks together. One of the album's songs was Crown of Flowers. And probably if you saw a video of that, it was a beautiful animation done by our son, Elijah Evenson. He happens to have started his artistic career doing animations and CG, computer animation for video games. And now he's a full-time sculptor, but he also works with Soundings of the Planet and creates a lot of the beautiful images that people see. So all in all, what happens is we're building an album that we want to get out to the world, because the cover of it is, you see a beautiful sunflower. And then it's just seemed to really represent our vision of peace through music, which is our motto since we sounded Soundings of the Planet, our record label, was founded in 1979. So that's a long story about a simple question, but it kind of brings you a little bit up to date in terms of what the music is and what we've been.
So Dudley, that soundtrack, Crown of Flowers, that was done in the 90s. Is that what you're telling me?
No, the Crown of Flowers was done in about, I think it was 2006. That's when we did.
Okay, because who would have known, right? In 2006, it would become so prominent, because I did not know about you, Dudley, or your husband, Dean. I did not know anything about you, but I saw that video and I heard the music, and it touched me so deeply that I had to find you. And you're in Bellingham, I'm in northern Canada, so we're not really that far away, but I needed to find you to find out more about this, because it's truly a beautiful piece of music. And if our viewers haven't listened to it yet, I'm going to put a link to it in the show notes. When I hear that music, I feel such a deep sense of connection, and the work that your son did and the visuals and all that, you just get a real sense of the beauty of the Ukraine and the beauty of the people there. So thank you so much for creating that and putting it all back together again. Like you said, we all need hope, and our friends in the Ukraine. Is your friend Vladimir, is he still alive? Where is he now?
Well, interestingly enough, he is, of course, still alive. He lives in Norway right now. So he's a war refugee. And I just want to speak a little bit about refugees from war-torn parts of our world. I know this country, the United States of America, used to have an open um, sense of helping people who are fleeing from war-torn areas or other calamities. That might be changing a bit right now, but I believe hopefully we'll get back to that. But I know many countries in the world do open their borders to legal immigrants who are fleeing terrible situations, whether it's war in their country or gang violence or poverty or other things. I just feel like we need to really respect the conditions that have caused someone to become a refugee. And that's where our friend Volodymyr, or Vladimir, it's the same kind of name, is living right now. And interestingly enough, Dean's family of origin is Norway. So it's kind of like coming full circle. His father was born in Norway. His mother wasn't born in Norway, but her parents were born in Norway. So he's full-blooded Norwegian. And so it really made us happy to know that Norway had taken him in as a refugee from this terrible war that's happening right now in the Ukraine.
And you speak about doing this piece through music and heading to the USSR. You really went there at a time when it wasn't open. It was still USSR. It was America versus, those two world powers. Back in those days, it wasn't common to actually have a contingent from America to go to the USSR. It just wasn't. So even that in itself was, I think, a declaration of who you are inside, that you were willing to stand up and to be an ambassador for peace and unity and just embracing people where they are. So I commend you for that. That is 30, more than 35 years ago.
It's a good while ago, yes. And I just feel like we have to look beyond politics and divisiveness in our world. This is being the flames of divisiveness are being fanned quite strongly by politicians and also by the media, because it does sell more media. And so we have to really look behind those stories, I believe, and respect that we're all human beings. We have a common sense of trying to live a good life, trying to take care of our families and do what we can. And then we do sometimes get caught up in the politics of the day. I feel like, particularly in relationship to your program of hope, a lot of young people are very worried, and rightly so, with what's happening in the world today. And I feel like as elders, and Dean and I are both in our 80s now, can't believe we finally did that. But we're still going strong, and we're still working the music, and we have a lot of young people around us. And fortunately, our family members are even involved. So that's really great. But how can we elders help to encourage the young people today to not lose hope, to keep doing whatever they can, and even in small ways in their local community, because there's a lot of divisiveness right here in local communities between maybe urban people and rural people, red and blue. We're really a rainbow of beautiful beings that each bring different gifts to our common culture. And so our goal in the kind of music we make, with a vision of creating peace, is really about mutual acceptance and appreciation for each other. So it's just something that doesn't stop. It's gone on forever. We've always had these kind of conflicts in our world. They've probably even been worse than what we're dealing with right now. For the most part, I'm not talking about people whose homes are getting bombed. And I'm certainly I don't know how anything could be much worse than Gaza, what's happening in Gaza right now. I have to be a little bit political there, and that's a really sad situation. So I know there are a lot of people working around the clock trying to bring peace to Gaza, but I fear for my Jewish friends all over the world who are feeling very vulnerable right now because of what their government is doing. So we need, as citizens, we need to call attention to these things and speak to our politicians, speak to our Congress people, and really vote and do our best to not be misled by untruths. I think somehow we've got to find some kind of common reality here.
As you speak, I think part of how honest this conversation is really speaking your heart, right? Speaking your heart and not holding back on the fact that we, each and every individual, we each count. We each are important. We each, and that's just not me, and it's just not you. It's every human, regardless of their color, regardless of their sexual orientation, regardless of where they were birthed on this planet. We're all important. And I think it's important for us to stand up for those who maybe don't have a voice right now, because, maybe that's the reason I was put here. Maybe that's the reason you were put here, to be a voice.
Exactly. If we're not going to be a voice, who is? Because we do, as individuals, have a conscience. And I think the other thing is just to think about your close personal relationships within your family and within your community, because we can get all big political and feel very frustrated because we don't feel like our voice is being heard on a large scale. In our daily life, with our family members, with people we might disagree with politically, people that might have different, levels of poverty or wealth, race, color, gender, all that. We have the opportunity to be examples of compassion, of kindness, of forgiveness, of patience. One of the very first workshops we attended with the Dalai Lama was about the subject of patience. I thought, well, I always think of him as compassion, but really patience is very much a part of how we can find peaceful relationships by being patient, patient with ourselves and patient with people that we might disagree with or we might have had a conflict with. And I often call it apparent conflict. I think when you go deeply enough and you really understand all the aspects of whatever it is you're dealing with, you're going to find we don't have that much conflict. It's a kind of stirred up and media and everybody wants us to be this way or that way. And if we can realize that the reason they want us to be in conflict or feel like we're in conflict is so that whoever is above us pulling the strings, they are getting what they want. And so I just feel like, when we let our petty differences of opinion or even values come in conflict with each other, we run the risk of losing our own innate power as human beings, as citizens in the country, in whatever country we live in. So we've got to take it personally. We've got to be very personal about overcoming conflict. And that means with your partner, with your mother, with your deceased parents, even with your children, with your cousin that maybe didn't vote the way you wanted him to. We don't have to hold on to those things, because really, frankly, when it comes down to it, there is only one way that we're going to overcome all this. And you know the answer. It's love. It's simply love. And we need to love ourselves. We need to love our conditions and just love and respect how we are, who we are, how we've created ourselves, and then keep going. And I think once we just stop criticizing each other so much, stop feeling like we've got to all analyze every aspect of things that we disagree on, I think we can get a lot further in our world with love.
I think so too. You know, as you were speaking, you talked about getting over conflict with your mother, with your cousin, with all of that. So when you and Dean got together, there was a bit of conflict before that, right? So let's go back a bit. And I'm not going to say how many years. You already said you're already in your 80s and that you and Dean got together, I think, when in 1968, right? So before that, if I was to ask your best friend in high school what Dudley was like, what would your best friend say?
Well, she would probably say I was very enthusiastic. That was one aspect of who I am. Some former classmates have called my attention to my enthusiasm because I do. I get excited about things that I care about. Um, but you were talking about conflict when Dean and I met in the late 60s. So we were in a generational conflict. So we were looking at the aspects of changes that we felt we needed to make as a society. We were coming out of the civil rights movement. We were really having to face it hard and clear that people of all races are human beings. They're human beings, and everyone in this country, I'm in U.S. citizen, but every country is moving more toward respect of people of all faiths, religious differences. They all deserve a place at the table. I think we just lost probably one of the best popes we've ever had, Pope Francis, and he was very clear about living the teachings of Christ, not getting caught up into one particular religion or way of seeing things or interpretation, because I think there's been a lot of misinterpretation of Christ's teachings. But he was very clear about respecting the immigrant, respecting the stranger, the Good Samaritan. He's generous, and how that all goes. And of course, I did have some conflicts in my family because I was dating a Jewish guy, and my parents were prejudiced, had that prejudice left over from, years of generations of prejudice. And I think World War II, for all the horrors that it unleashed, it also called attention to innate prejudices that people have. And so I think my parents were trying to protect me. And anyway, it was a long period of time of having these differences of values. And yet, at a certain point, I think it was when I was about to become a mother, I had this realization. Well, first of all, I thought, my parents, they don't understand me. They don't know who I am. They don't respect who I want to be, who I am. And then I had this kind of eureka moment where I said, wait a minute, I am having a little bit of judgment about them too. I was judging them for their prejudices, their conservatism, their materialism, etc. And I just thought, I can change. I can change that coming from me. And I did. I just went, I want to get back to that unconditional love that, I had grown up with. And so within a few weeks, I didn't call my parents and say, hey, I decided to change my mind or, shift my consciousness about this. But it worked out that we began to communicate. And it really was because I changed. And I think that something is a big, big part of creating change in the world. We want to be the change that we want to see. We cannot chastise others for not being that if we can't be it ourselves. And so to me, being living the values of our faith, if that's where you find your values, but the common sense aspects of human kindness and compassion and respect are all part of every faith. And so we just need to grab onto that more. So we can change the world, but we need to change from inside. And that's where it's really going to make a difference.
Yes, I agree too. So during the 70s, you traveled. You traveled with your young family. So you and Dean had gotten together early at the end of the civil rights movement. But then in the 70s, you were really, the videographers of the future way back when nobody was doing videography. So tell us about that and tell us about the school bus that you lived in. And because I just think it's fascinating, that kind of a story.
Well, it was a fun story, and boy, we did write our story. Well, like I said, Dean and I met in 1968. In 1970, we ended up purchasing the first available early portable video camera. It was called Sony Video Portapack, and it was a big 8-pound camera connected by a cable to a 35-pound deck that you carried on your shoulder. And that's portable video. This is portable video now, of course, and much better quality. But in the process, we realized we wanted to find out what people were thinking about, what's going on in the world. There was a lot of innovation. There was really a new consciousness that was blooming. If people weren't a part of it, it was a materialistic world and things were changing in that way. But for many of us, we wanted to live out in the country, grow gardens, learn to live cooperatively. And Dean and I ended up, we had a number of different communal living situations, but we also ended up with a half-size school bus that we lived and traveled in. And I even gave birth to our second daughter in living on a Florida island, and it's gonna have a baby. And it was New Year's Eve, and we had the baby, but we also made a video of it. So we videoed our life and all the people we were meeting, the things we were learning. We were learning about environmentalism. It was Earth Day had just finally happened in the early 70s. People were coming to awareness. Dean and I went to the Stockholm United Nations Conference on the human environment, and that was one of the very first gatherings where people addressed the environment. And so we got to be there, but in the process, it wasn't the diplomats who attended this conference from all over the world. It was the 15 Native Americans that Stuart Brand, he was the founder of the Whole Earth Catalog. Many people might not know what that was, but it was the Google of the day of how to acquire the right kind of products, whether it's shovels and hose or solar panels that were just starting. Anyway, he had sent over these 15 Native Americans to be a representative to the UN. And we were camping out with a bunch of all the young people in Stockholm. They'd all put us in a really nice camp, but it was kind of out of town. So they got rid of us from the main section of the conference for the most part. But boy, we got to know each other, and we listened to those Native elders who were telling us about the earth. It is a living being. She is alive. She is like a mother. We need to respect her. And what we noticed is they were talking about the human environment. They just cared about the human environment, but what in the main conference, but we were saying this is much, much bigger than the human environment. And we really need to come to understanding about it, how to live in harmony with the earth, how to live in balance, how to learn to give back. Because pretty much the human experience has been taking from the earth. Mine, it's my resource. This is mine. I'm going to dig this out of the ground, or oil. Oh, we'll pump it out. It's mine. It's a human gets to use it, but that's not really what it's there for. There's a lot of benefit that leaving it in the ground is good too. Anyway, so those were just things that really lit our fire. And then the next year, Dean ended up going to the Wounded Knee occupation in South Dakota. And so that was a huge event for Native Americans, because all this is happening in the 70s. People are just starting to come to the awareness of their reality that we cannot live the way we've been living, and we must learn to live in harmony with each other, with other human beings, but also with the planet itself. And so Dean was out in South Dakota for a month and videoed the elders, and there's a lot of stories that came out of that. And then it also inspired us later in the 70s to start our record label, because we'd been mostly doing video in the 70s. Dean was a musician. He played flute since he was 10 years old. So he was a really good flute player. In fact, in 1977, I think it was, we were in South Dakota, and we ended up at the 88th birthday powwow of Chief Fool's Crow. Now, he was the Lakota elder who hosted the White House representatives when they came to negotiate after Wounded Knee. So he was a really respected elder chief. And in the process, when we spent the night, and then it was a big gathering, and we were welcome to be there. And then somebody said, well, John Denver's over there by the teepee. And so anyway, John Denver was there. And it was just pretty special for John to be able to play his songs and sing to the tribal people. And then Dean was right there backing him up on flute. And you just never know who you're going to run into when you follow your dreams. Because we were following our dreams, and then you run into we ran into some pretty amazing people. And
Well,
yeah,
Ram Dass, you know Ram Dass and Timothy
Timothy Leary.
Leary. Like you said, you follow your dreams and the path just opens up for you. What was all that with Ram Dass and Tim Leary?
Well, we've seen Tim Leary, but really it was Ram Dass who caught our fancy. He was really about spirituality and consciousness. He had lived he was a professor at, I believe, Yale, psychology or something, and he ended up in India, and he had an awakening and met his guru, and then he came back and wrote a book called Be Here Now. Interesting, that phrase, be here now, is probably the key to just about everything. If we can be in the present moment, we're going to be a lot closer to being who we want to be, where we want to be, all that. We're often living in the past, we're living in the future, we're worried or anxious about other things, but being here now is pretty darn important. So, of course, we were influenced and inspired by Ram Dass, and we attended a number of lectures with him in Woodstock, New York, where we lived for a while, and then Aspen, Colorado. And then eventually he came to talk in Tucson, Arizona, where we were living at the time. And we arranged to record his lecture. Interestingly enough, the place we parked our school bus in Tucson was behind it was a beautiful estate out in the desert owned by Peggy Hitchcock, who had been, she was born Peggy Mellon. She was part of the Mellon family. And she was the one who had Ram Dass and Timothy Leary come and stay in her. It was a family house, like a kind of a very large house upstate New York somewhere. So they got to do all their nonsense at her house. I didn't even know that until later that was her house where they visited. And maybe she's the contact, maybe that's how we even knew how to connect with Ram Dass. But he wanted us to record his lecture just on audio. And so Dean was a recording engineer, which I didn't mention before when we were in New York, where we first met. He ended up learning the business. He learned about recording engineering. He was right there working with the early 16 track and a lot of Atlantic Records artists. He recorded Eric Clapton, Roberta Flack, Mose Allison, a lot of really special people. So he got that under his belt. So that was a tech. I feel like Dean has always had both sides of his brain working. It's got the spiritual, or you got the intellectual, and then he's got the science and the scientific, and the intuitive is all back and forth. So he's got science and art on both sides of the brain. So that's how we've been able to put little studios together on a shoestring budget. And, he could just always do it at home. But anyway, so we recorded a Ram Dass lecture, and we said, put a little thing, if you want this, $5, and give us $5 and we'll make a copy for you. And so we got about 50 orders, and we're like, that's interesting, because cassette tape, you think of cassette tapes, it kind of came and went, and a lot of people didn't even experience cassette tapes, but it was a big deal at the time, because prior to that, we had only vinyl records was the way you listened to records. You had 33 and a third, 40, I don't know, 72, 48, I don't know, there's a bunch of different, 45, I think, the other one. But so we said, well, maybe we should think about our media. What are we doing with media? Because we had been doing video all those years. We had hundreds of hours of video, and they were in boxes underneath the bed in the back of our bus, and we schlepped them all over the country. We didn't lose them. We kept them, fortunately. And then, but cassette tapes would be a way that we could put our own music out. And so anyway, Dean went out into the desert one night and spent the night. And then in the morning, he set up two mics far apart from each other and recorded the birds at dawn. And then we brought that back to our little makeshift studio, and Dean and I played flute and harp. I had a kind of an open tune harp. And then our friend Jonathan Kramer played cello, and we created our first album called Desert Dawn Song. And it's just still today very, very popular. Now it's all become digitized and got CDs and everything. But and then we had the Ram Dass album, and then we had 3 other albums that we put out at the same time. So we had our little 5 cassettes, and Dean silk screened the covers because we wanted color, but we couldn't afford it. And so we made little silk screen covers, and then we would sell them at the swap meet, the local swap meet. And, you know, we might sell 10 in a weekend. Oh, there's 10 or, you know, $10 a tape, and less than $100 really, because I think we were only selling them for $8 then. And then it just grew. And next year we made some more, and then we made some more, and it just kept growing. And so that we decided to start our own record label called Soundings of the Planet, because based on our the knowledge and wisdom we had received from the native elders and the visionaries, and also the spiritual, because we were dealing with all sorts of things were happening at the time, including massage, for instance. That was a new thing in this country. Massage and yoga and meditation, all those were new. They were just coming about in the 70s. And so we ended up creating this music, and people would come back and say, wow, that really helped me deal with chronic pain or meditate, or my child has been very stressed, and, you know, I could help go to sleep, or giving birth, I use your tape for giving natural childbirth. And so over the years, it just grew. And now we have, you know, 80 albums, and, you know, hundreds and hundreds of single songs, which is like that one you heard, the Crown of Flowers is just a song on an album. But yeah, so we just started our little company, didn't wait to be discovered. A lot of musicians wish they would get discovered by some big record label and they'd take them and do all their stuff, but it just didn't appeal to us in that way. We thought, well, we just need to do it ourselves. And because of the native understanding of the earth, using nature sounds on our albums, especially in the early days, was really important, because we wanted people who are living in urban areas who are actually making the decisions about what we do on the planet. We wanted them to be inspired by the earth, because if you love something, you're going to protect it. You don't have to twist somebody's arm to protect something that they love, but you need to help them understand to love it, and to love the planet, to love the earth, is, I think, the key to finding that peace. So
I think you're right, because they're saying that vitamin N, have you heard about vitamin N? Nature.
Oh, good. I like.
All right. It's the newest
vitamin,
and it's like this, it's free, and it just does wonders for us. So
I know, and I talk about a lot of that. We have a channel called Dean and Dudley Living Dreams, and it's just me and Dean talking about stuff and just sharing ideas. I did a book club a few years ago with my my book, A Year of Guided Meditations, and we met every month to, you know, kind of talk about the meditations. There are 52 of them. And I don't know, people want to know, how can I have more nature in my life, especially if I live in a city? And I mean, Dean and I we've always lived on mountaintops. We've always lived far out of town, and it works for us, but everybody can't live out of towns. But there are ways to find nature within even urban environments, or in an apartment, or or a little garden on a windowsill, or, you know, just ways to, and that's why we do all the nature videos. So if you go to our YouTube channel it's called the Soundings of the Planet YouTube channel, and that is the one that has just lots and lots of videos of our gardens around here. Rhododendrons are starting to bloom now. The azaleas are coming out. It's just amazing how beautiful it is. And then along with the peaceful music, it just so helpful. Just when you're feeling stressed and you're feeling overwhelmed by all the bad news that you read about or hear about, when you can just put on something that is audio and visual, and it really helps you just to ground out and remind yourself that, oh, this is a beautiful world that we live in. How can we take care of it? And how can we let it help take care of us by being in nature? So
Sure. So we talked about how your record label came to be, and what you've done with it and how it's progressed. So you are an author as well. Can you tell us? You talked about your guided meditations, but what's the other book?
the other book, our first book, is called Quieting the Monkey Mind: How to Meditate with Music. And I just happen to have a picture. So this is the How to Meditate with Music, and that's it's what we've been learning. And we did a lot over the years. We traveled to so many work conferences, body, mind, spirit conferences, massage conferences, book author conferences, where we were with Wayne Dyer and Louise Hay and Joan Borisenko and Denise Lin, and just so many fabulous authors who are helping to help us all to use the tools that are native to us, that are given to us, but we've forgotten, and how to overcome the stresses of modern life in particular. So this was a really fun one because we've got a lot of exercises that we, well, it also uses my photographs. So that's the other thing I'm into photography. It takes you, it helps you meditate. We've used music to help us go into a meditative space, to clear the mind, to overcome all the worries and concerns that we naturally have. How can we make that, use it with music? And there's a lot of wonderful things. Dean and I love to do vocal toning, where you just, take a deep breath. And you can use a sound. There's tones that you can make using the chakras, focusing on the different chakra levels. So I explain all that in the book. And it just was something that we traveled so many years doing these workshops, that I just want to put it all in one place, because we're not traveling these days that much. I mean, we went down to Edmonds recently and saw Rick Steves talk. He's a travel writer, and he talks about travel as a political act, but that was our big trip. But we just haven't been traveling as much as we used to, and that's perfectly fine, because we love where we live. We're in a beautiful place in nature. So that's the Unquieting the Monkey Mind. And then this is the Year of Guided Meditations, that little book. And this is 52. It's really nice. It's just got like a short affirmation for each 52 weeks in a year. And then it explains why you want to, how do you find inner peace, or how do you deal with what about service? How can we serve? It's just all the different ideas of positive ways of helping to center our consciousness into a place where it will support us in being happy and peaceful and healthy, and all the things we want to be.
You're a life coach as well.
I help as many people as I can. I just love to help people. I'm not, running out trying to find clients right now. It just seems like people come to me, and just something like you can help your with your friends or your family. We work together. How about this tool? Or what have you thought about this? And, it's just understanding that whatever troubles we're having, someone else has probably gone through it and might have some solutions. So I just like to share what I've been learning all these years. That's why the Year of Guided Meditations, all these principles seem to reflect a deep learning that has helped Dean and I to live a beautiful life, and of love and family and creativity and business and success and all those things. And I think they're really universal principles. Years ago, we studied with a man named Arnold Patent. He taught about universal principles, and he had learned a lot through the Course in Miracles, which you may be familiar with. And so it turned out that the principles he was discovering and kind of codifying a little bit just to put them in one place, were similar, very much the same as what Dean and I had discovered through our own readings, through studying, through traveling, through videoing all these amazing people. And it's just like, wow, how can we help each other? And I really think having friends, having girlfriends, for women particularly, you know, I notice a lot of my older friends have lost their husbands. So, you know, women particularly need to make sure they got some good girlfriends to be with, because sometimes just having somebody to talk to and share what you're feeling with is therapy. And I think we all need that. We all need somebody to talk to. And if you have a partner that you can chat with like that, or a family member, that's great. But if you don't, then you've got friends. And so it's not like having a friend that's going to take your side in a situation and gang up on whoever you're against. Not at all. My approach is always about, how can we find the balance? How can we understand the other person? And then how can we find a way to overcome whatever sense of conflict we have with that person? Because again, apparent conflict, it's not necessarily a permanent thing. It's something that we can, if we're willing, overcome. The difference is not that we don't want to be different, and nothing wrong with diversity. Thank you very much. Diversity is wonderful. But to have differences that make us feel further apart from each other, I don't think is what we're looking for. I think we want to respect each other's differences. But then, particularly in families, I notice there's a lot of patterns that happen. And when you can kind of start to notice patterns that are happening, and see what your role is in continuing that pattern, which isn't helpful, you can take responsibility for it. So once you can go inside, it's like you're your own therapist. If you have the principles, if you understand the principles of how the universe works, if you give love, you'll get love. You know, it comes around. What Jesus said, do unto others. It's also a Jewish thing too. What do unto others as you have them do unto you. So that's just common sense. If you want to treat somebody like your enemy, oh, Jesus said, love your enemy. Hello. That is not easy. But when you can, you won't have enemies. Pretty soon that enemy, and usually it's not a national enemy, it's just a person in your life, or a family member, or somebody you disagree with, and you might, or it could be a coworker. You allow that person to be an enemy, and then you completely cut off any possibility of healing. So that's how I like to work with people, is just to help them just to sort of see things in a little bit different light and take responsibility for their role in whatever that is happening.
We're almost at the end of our show, Dudley. How can people get a hold of you? I mean, you have so many things. There's the books, there's the soundings of the planet, there's the beautiful music that you talk about. There's just so much that you have done in your career. Is there a place where we can find it all?
Oh, yes, there is. And we got our website in 1996. So it's soundings.com, soundings.com, soundings.com. And that'll take you to every other place. But if you're on YouTube and you want to look for Soundings of the Planet on a YouTube, that will be your wonderful place for just peaceful music, beautiful nature videos. Dean and I were fortunate to get to go to France in about 5 years ago. It was our 45th anniversary of Soundings of the Planet. It wasn't even, I mean, we've been married over 50 years, but anyway. But we went to Monet's gardens in Giverny. We went to all the Impressionist museums in Paris. And so we have some beautiful, beautiful images of, there's one called Springtime in Monet's Garden. And it just will give you a sense of where we live. And because our garden is very similar to, it turns out, to Monet's garden. And we love studying about Monet because he was a forerunner in his genre, Impressionism. We are forerunners in our genre of New Age meditation music. He also was a family man. He loved his family. He really cared about his kids. And he also was successful in his life. And that's kind of rare to have six. I mean, Van Gogh, bless his heart, didn't even sell one painting, maybe one in his whole life. His paintings are now worth so much, but he didn't experience success in his life. But Monet did. And the other thing is he loved nature. And so he created a garden. He created gardens that just in an unbelievable way reflect the gardens that we have around here. Rhododendrons, azaleas, and lilies and irises, and so many beautiful, plus a pond, and we're by a river. Anyway, we were just like, whoa, how'd that happen? And he lived to be an old man with a beard. So that's my husband, Dean. And yeah, so those are places good to find. Yeah, and on YouTube, you just type in Soundings of the Planet, you'll find us everywhere. And the other place is the Soundings Mindful Media channel. That would be our archival videos. And I introduced you to Daniel before, and he's the one who's been putting together these amazing edits of our early videos, all through that we did all through the 70s. And then, of course, they continued to this day. So we just kind of all over the place, and wherever you listen to music, whether it's Spotify or Pandora or Amazon or Apple or anywhere else, you just type in Dean Evenson or Dudley Evenson, and our music will come up all over the place. We got so many great albums, and I tend to do my yoga to listening to our own music. I'm always surprised. Oh, I forgot about that. Oh, well, that's so nice. What was that from? So it's kind of, even though all the many years of traveling and selling our CDs and playing like sections of them, I don't get tired of it because it's kind of a, first of all, Dean is just the sweetest person in the world. So it's like the sound waves are carrying the intention of his sweet energy, and he's so creative. And I say Dean as the main musician. Now, I play with him, but he also played with Scott Huckabee, Phil Heaven, Li Shanting, who's from China, obviously Valadymyr Solionyc from Kiev, Ukraine. So we have a lot of collaboration. Peter Ali is a Native American with Moroccan background. So there's just so many collaborations. Dee Rachel lives in Mexico. She plays harp. So we just have all these friends who are some people, record labels have what they call a stable of musicians, which always seems strange to me. We don't have a stable, but we do have friends. And that's, I think, the best way to make music is with your friends or family.
Yes. Well, Dudley, what is your last message of hope for our audience today?
Don't give up. Don't ever give up. Got to hold on for dear life, because life is a gift. We are blessed to be recipients of this gift of life. We didn't create ourselves. We're co-creators with the great creator of all life. And so whatever we can do to make this world a better place, I believe that is our purpose and our mission in life. Dean's and my mission is peace through music on a scale of that idea, but peace through love and was the other idea we had too, because if we can love each other, love the earth, we'll care for it. Love the people that maybe we disagree with. Unconditional love means you're not expecting them to be any certain way. We can do that. So we have a lot of work to do. And I think it's really important to not give up on at this crucial time in history. Because if we can all stick together, find your tribe, find your tribe that's not going to fight other tribes. Not a tribe. I don't mean a tribe like that. I mean the tribe of people you resonate with. Those are the people you want to be with, and you put energy into that. But also know that every human being has their own tribe, and we can relate to everybody and learn and grow from each other. And I feel so excited about this time, even though it might be easy to be depressed. I'm not going to go there. And I just encourage us all to not give up, have hope, and it's a good time to heal. We can even heal our past relationships with people who may have been deceased. We can heal that. We can heal our generations. We don't need to judge what our grandparents or past generations may have done, or decisions they made. We don't need to judge them, but we can move forward in a way that will lift everybody up. And believe me, the world needs us right now.
Well, thank you, Dudley, so much. I could listen to your stories all day. I really could. So I'm definitely going to check out your YouTube channel and hear you speak some more, just conversationally in your beautiful Monet garden out there in Bellingham. It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Fran, for what you're doing and the fact that you're calling attention to hope and interviewing people who are adding to the overall hope aspect.
Yeah. And those of you that are watching or listening to us today, if you like what you heard, please subscribe. It'll help me. It'll help Dudley spread the word of hope. There's so much to live for. There's so much to know that we're not alone. There are other people all over the place that believe in the seeds of peace and the soundings of the planet. Truly is. So thank you so much, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. This podcast and inspired healing hypnotherapy do not provide medical advice. The information included here is not limited to text, graphics, images, or other material contained, and are for informational purposes only. No material in this podcast is intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or treatment, and before undertaking a new healthcare regimen, and never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard on this site.